I think there is a way. It just takes to be revolutionary.
Just a reminder, my name is Naomi. I'm an ex-academic librarian who designed hope in the form of dye for art. You can't change a sector, you can't change a system until you change the people inside the system. I'm really excited for today. Oh, hey Laura. I know you. Hi Laura. It's so nice to virtually see you again. And I know Alicia as well. Hi Leonie. Go into present mode. Perfect. It's going to be a session that is very vulnerable, but is also potentially triggering. No, this topic of what is abundance, what is scarcity. These are themes and topics that bring up a lot of uncomfortable emotions. I will be sharing my lived experience with my story and my mindset and my perspectives. Right now in the world, it feels truly heavy, truly dense. There's a lot of fear in the air. There's a lot of scarcity. We're also, of course, seeing a lot of wars, genocides, just a lot of things that are making us feel heavy, making us feel depressed, and more importantly, I would argue, preventing us from coming together to find the solution. So this workshop slash masterclass is really to help us remember abundance, is aiming to be a guide to growth, creativity, and hope in the face of personal and collective scarcity. Because as I mentioned, there's everything going on in the world, but then we have our own personal lives. Some of us may be going through breakups. Some of us may be going through work challenges, issues with children. A lot of things just happening in our everyday life before we even add what's going on for other people in this world. So really, I'm hoping that this session, by the end of it, you're going to feel different. I'm not going to try and say you're going to feel invigorated, you're going to feel happy. I hope though that you leave feeling different. Let's start. I really wanted to show that there have been times in my life where I have gone through financial scarcity. This is a screenshot of my bank account. Once upon a time, life can really push you to the edge. That time, though, when I look back at it, it's truly evolved me. It's something that brought out a richness in my character. Sometimes money, aka fear, can have such an extreme impact on us. It can make us feel, like I said, so anxious, so scared. And I've felt those emotions before, but we do catastrophize a lot of the time. Things can be bad, but they're not necessarily as bad as what our mind will make us think. And what the mind thinks, the eyes will see. A negative projection. Our mind is very, very powerful. And I would recommend everybody looking into neuroscience. It's such a fascinating field, and it really, in a way, explains the science behind spirituality, the science behind manifestation. Quantum physics as well explains the science behind spirituality, but I would say neuroscience really highlights the link between how the mind can create your reality, literally. And talking about how your mind can create your reality, when I quit my job, and a lot of you may already know this story, how I I didn't know what to do. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. And as we know, the school system does not teach you how to make money for yourself. The school system teaches you how to make money for companies, for organizations. So I really had to start from basics. And what I did was just go on YouTube and just look at different videos. Everybody that I was watching, all these entrepreneurs, and bearing in mind a lot of them you could group into this category of, that kind of like very privileged, kind of nepo baby, white male entrepreneur kind of outlook. But then there were other people from marginalized backgrounds, people who were the first in their generation or first in their family to create a set amount of money or to do something different. Everybody kept saying the same thing. It's this idea of people will say it's impossible until you do it. Like people, and when we say people, it could be family, friends, society, they will tell you it's impossible to do XYZ, but you somehow you're a glitch, you beat the odds. And of course, this is why sometimes this conversation can be triggering, because we know that in this world, there are people whose odds, they're not even. There are some people it's a lot easier to win. It's a lot easier to get certain things. But I say this holding somebody's hand, so I feel somebody may potentially get triggered when I say this. It's very important not to be in victim mentality, to always be focusing on how the oppressor is keeping you down. Because Maya Angelou, whose poetry I grew up on, has this act of defiance in all her writing. And if you know her personal story, very, very, very traumatic childhood upbringing. But this poem I remember doing at school, Still I Rise. And this verse really stands out to me. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. For me, it makes me think of life, people. They will shoot us down. They will cut us. They can kill us. But Maya didn't wait for somebody to pick her up, because unfortunately, and again, I want to say I would feel like I need to hold somebody's hand saying this. No one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save us. I think we need to wake up to the reality that certain institutions are there for a reason. They're operating and functioning how they should. And I would argue as well, and this is just my personal opinion, that there's a lot of things purposely being put in our faces when it comes to what we see on social media, what we hear on the news, to keep us in this very narrow mindset, this victim mentality, where we're too disempowered to fight back. We're too disempowered to rise. So it serves purposes that are necessary for empires to function. Let's put it that way. Thinking about empires. So I think, first of all, just highlight, don't you think it's interesting that I screenshot this picture literally and exactly 2 years ago on the 26th of April? And this is not an AI created image. This is actually a picture taken in 2013. It, for me, again, highlights this defiance in the face of, literally, in the face of an oppressor. There is a lot of pain and tragedy and torment. And for me, as someone who's very, very, very sensitive, like it's very distressing to think about what is happening in certain countries. And again, this is why I think and know and hope that my work is perceived and received as highlighting an actual pragmatic approach to how we can change this world. We can't change this world until we change ourselves. And we can't change ourselves until we start to look at ourselves differently. So I do want to move on. Nothing in life is actually impossible. Is it necessarily easy? No. Should it be easy? Most definitely. But again, I think for me, I'm at a point in my resistance where let me learn how to play the game. Let me win this game. And then when I'm in this position, I can change the game, because I will have the actual resources to change the game. And I will, of course, as well help other people get to a similar place. Like, really, this is something that I've had to learn in this kind of entrepreneurial identity of having to see struggle and life as it's chess, not checkers. Similar to kind of what Maya Angelou was saying, like, okay, you can push me down, you can do everything. Guess what? I'm getting back up and I'm going to win this game. And that is, I want to say, like, that is on God. Like that is like for my ancestors. I also personally feel a sense of not resilience, but this energy of I have to do for my ancestors what these people did to my bloodline. Oh, like we have to win. I have to. So it goes to yeah, my success is inevitable. I have to it has to be inevitable. I have to do it for my ancestors. And how though do I make my success inevitable? It's not going to be just a pipe dream. I'm going to keep showing up. And this is something that a lot of people, I don't think I've really embraced this idea of when you show up. I'm using the context of being like a creative entrepreneur, but making a personal brand online, showing up on social media, you do attract opportunities. You know, most people here, you're only here because you saw me on social media. Maybe you came to my event that you saw on social media or you saw in an email. I show up. I created opportunities for myself. I've created connections. So, yeah, going into the next segment, because this leads really nicely into when we think about abundance, abundance of ideas as well, remembering ideas. And something that I would love to encourage people to remember is the fact that when you're very calm, ideas come to you. You don't have to force things. You don't have to sit and think, oh, like, let's say content. What should I make a TikTok about? What should I do this? When you really just naturally remember what you enjoy to talk about, what you want to share, who you are, the real authentic person, the real authentic person. Who are you behind the mask? Who are you really? Who are you before people or society made you want to hide yourself or made you want to not put yourself out there 100% because you fear being misunderstood? This path of creating your reality, you could say this path of creating and remembering abundance requires you to be very authentic in yourself. Because when you are authentic in yourself, when you're tapped into yourself, ideas come to you in abundance, ideas that can then actually go on to generate money if money is that main focus of abundance for you, but can go on to generate ideas that can lead to different things. So being in a calm state, again, I'm not going to say it's a mindset shift because there are obviously people with mental health issues where it's not just simple to think, oh, just think positively. You know, there's people who have to take medication in order to regulate their minds. So again, I'm not trying to fall into these very these kind of frameworks that ignore neurodivergent minds, but it's a reminder to, when you can, go and do something nice. Go and pick joy. Go and do that thing that will put you in a good mood or make you feel less stressed. You can't change a sector, you can't change a system until you change the people inside the system. Because when your cortisol is lower, when you're doing things that you enjoy, this is when ideas will come. Now, actually, I'm gonna go back to this because what I'm talking about, like being very playful with life. You know, again, children know how to play, and then we become very serious. We become as adults, and it's interesting that the quote unquote young people who there are some people who they're very like biologically they're old, but because they have a very youthful and playful attitude to life, you don't know their age. I like to think that I'm one of those people. I'm 34 and I'm always like mistaken for someone who's a lot younger. Yes, good genes, a lot of melanated women. We have, I want to say the best genes. I don't know if that's gonna get me in trouble, but personal opinion, we have the best genes. But anyway, it is though as well. Like I do or actively try to choose to have a playful approach to life, a youthful approach to life, you know, even thinking about my friends, like I really try and have friends from different age groups. So as a 34-year-old, I have friends who are in their 50s, maybe in their 60s. I mean, yeah, actually could be in their 60s, but look good and look like they're in like their 50s or 40s. But I also have friends who are younger than me because when you're around different people and different experiences, it can create new ideas. It can also help you to remember that childlike version of you. Who were you before you came into the world and unfortunately were taught to hide yourself or to dim your light? As Black women, especially, it's very hard to be a confident Black woman out loud. The world is very insistent on seeing confident Black women and trying to bring them a bit down. And I've definitely had that in my journey of, since quitting my job. It's this attitude of almost like, who does she think she is? Who does she think she is to think that I can survive in this economy without a 9 to 5? Who does she think she is to, in this economy, say I'm creating a masterclass on abundance? But I would say, attitudes and reactions like that is because you have not remembered that you also have that side to you as well, a side of playfulness, being playful with life. And see in this picture, this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I have read this book. It is a great book. And just reading in general is a way for us to tap back into ourselves, to sink within ourselves, to reconnect with ourselves. I'm someone who actively tries to, and it's not easy, it's actually not easy, but tries to force myself to do things that are nice. Like it's not every day work, work, work. And as somebody who is obviously an entrepreneur, one of the first kind of pitfalls I fell into was, oh, I need to be working 24/7 because now it's all on me and my action is now going to create money. So if I'm not working, then I'm not making money. But that's something that thankfully, due to just, again, YouTube, listening to people who I didn't think I would agree with, but I was just curious just to see their perspective, realized that is not a sustainable way of life. I learned how to create systems and I learned how to create systems, which then allowed me to review my concept of like work and balance it out. But I also learned the importance of I'm my most naturally abundant when I'm well rested. And rest is a privilege, definitely. But I've had to try and when I can create that privilege and create that rest, knowing that a large part of me being very defensive towards rest in the past and me thinking I can't take rest was coming from a scarcity mindset. It was coming from I can't afford to rest. I can't afford to rest. I need to hustle, hustle, hustle. That's something that is obviously a program, and not a program, it's a yeah, actually let's call it a program. It's a capitalist program. Is that, like I said at the beginning of thinking about the school system, it teaches us how to make money for people. It teaches us hustle is good, resting is lazy. You need to be busy, productive. We know about, work culture is very important, especially as Black women who have come from a whole lineage where we were forced to overwork to the point of death, where we actively start to create rest. Even if it starts with just, I'm going to try and go to bed for 5 minutes, 5 minutes earlier. And for those 5 minutes, I'm going to do deep breathing. Maybe for some people, that's the only amount of rest. Maybe it's at work. Whilst you're in the lift, try and do some breathing, or you go and sit down. Like, rest doesn't have to be going to the spa, going and doing certain things. If you have the money and the access and the privilege, but of course, like that can really rejuvenate your mindset. That can really do a lot. But certain little things, everyday things that are free as well, that you don't have to pay for, are available to us. And it's that act of remembering that things are always available to us. A lot of the time, we also have to remember that what is available to us, the answer, is not necessarily the answer that we're looking for, the answer that we want to hear. Sometimes the answer is patience and wait. And I think that's very important to highlight because when it comes to things going on in the world, when it comes to things going on in our personal life, sometimes the answer is there's no answer right now, but that doesn't mean that's the answer forever. Delay is not denial. So let me go back to this, where this is again a lifestyle, I would say. everything that I'm saying. It's this lifestyle. It's a holistic relationship with life. You can't change a sector. You can't change a system until you change the people inside the system. Today, I will peacefully witness with my unanswered questions. Today, I will have patience with everything that remains unsolved in my heart. Today, I will love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books written in a foreign language. Today, I will not look for the answers because even if they were given to me, I would not know their meaning. It's this playful relationship with life. So, this kind of plays into what we've been saying. This kind of creative freedom, you could argue, this idea of how we approach in life, but also as well, I think in when what who has a hobby, and it'd be great to know in the chat who who is sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments, but if anybody has a hobby, let me know in the chat because not many people have hobbies, and again, hobbies don't have to be paid hobbies. Hobbies can be free. Hobbies don't have to be regular. Are there things that we can start to do to invite this kind of creative freedom into our lives? And this was actually a quote from my friend. When I wrote my book last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, Open This Door, there's a whole section on creative freedom, new knowledge, power, and creative freedom. And I wanted to understand, how do other people understand creative freedom? And my friend said, to me, creative freedom is the ability to express myself without limits, without fear, pressure, or constraints. Creativity has always been my escape, a way to carve out my own space of freedom. Now that I truly have the time and mental capacity to embrace it, creative freedom feels like a limitless playground where I can explore, grow, and bring my visions to life. It's a lot. It's a lot of positive energy, hopefully that this is triggering this idea that, let's say you do a creative hobby, you can lose yourself in creating, you can lose yourself in reading. But I like to think of life, like I said, this life is a game. You play a game. And when you start to think about life like that, when you start to also as well, not even think about life, but start to literally live out your life like that and to actually do things that highlight that you're living life in this playful way. So for me, for example, just using me as an example of when I quit my job, I just took that risk. I just jumped off the cliff, so to speak, and really found a lot of freedom on the other end. Is this idea of, I'm not encouraging people to just quit their job, but what areas in your life could you take a bit more risk with? That's all I'm going to say. And even if that is potentially triggering, actually challenge yourself to new ideas. Actually challenge yourself to be triggered. Being triggered, again, in this society, we don't like to feel uncomfortable. We don't like discomfort. But when you sit with the discomfort, it can be such a teacher. If this is something that is going to make you mentally unstable, by thinking of certain things, then of course, don't do it. But if there are things that have come up and you've tried to press down and they keep coming up and you're in this battle and the cycle, they come up, you press them down. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about it. You distract yourself. First of all, understand that they're coming back up because you keep pressing them down. It's like a jack in the box. You need to let things rise up. And once they rise, once they've told you what they want you to know, things happen, things change. And so I publicly really promote this. Open yourself up to new forms of information. Open yourself, open yourself up on YouTube to listening to people who you don't think you'll agree with, but there's this curiosity. For example, people like Andrew Tate. I once sat down and watched a few of Andrew Tate's videos. I definitely do not agree with Andrew Tate. I definitely do not agree with anything Andrew Tate has said, apart from
it doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you fall on. When you observe a genocide in front of your very eyes, you should be disgusting.
Which side is waging genocide?
The Israelis are genociding the Palestinians, and you know it as well as everybody else does.
That.
Well, then it seems like your bosses are not allowing you to know it.
Well, I actually respect the confidence that you come out publicly more than once and say you're against genocide, because there's so many people who I know personally who have never said one word. It deserves to be called out, because there are academics, for example, who say that they understand decolonial issues. There are people who have written articles on the need to be vocal about social justice. But in that time when needing to be vocal was necessary, and it still is necessary, are very silent because of fear. Again, I don't shame people because of fear, because fear is something that we all have. However, if you understand and recognize that fear is holding you back and you don't do anything, then I can say, well, that's a choice. You're choosing to stay weak, because you could embark on a journey that is not going to feel comfortable, but does invite more courage. And with that courage, it not only impacts positively your life, but it could positively impact other people's lives. And I just want to kind of highlight how, again, just somebody who listens to different forms of information and wanting to ground this masterclass in actual abundance, if we're going to use money as actual physical manifestations of abundance. So and this is kind of again like me wanting as well to have a hobby. And I'll be honest, I didn't really want to join a club. I didn't really want to go outside my house. I just decided I'm going to learn about a new subject. And I picked trading because during my my entrepreneurial journey, learning about systems, especially this idea of you need to make money work for you. People kept saying about the thing about investing is your money grows, unlike in a bank. And before I continue, this is not financial advice. I am not qualified to give financial advice. I'm just sharing my experience and what has personally worked for me. Yeah, I wanted to learn more about investing because I kept hearing and learning and seeing for myself, okay, money in a bank doesn't grow, but money can grow on when you trade and when you invest. Of course, there's a risk. But something that I'm starting to see is when it comes to risk, yes, you can lose a lot, but sometimes the higher the risk, the bigger the award as well. And so I started to learn about trading, and I found this YouTuber. Again, he's not necessarily qualified to give financial advice. He's someone's YouTube videos that I consume, and I make that choice to consume, and I make that choice to follow certain things that he has said. But one thing that I really like about him, he's American, he doesn't shy away from the politics that's actually embedded within abundance. Like this video, you were never meant to build wealth. Here's how they kept you out. It goes back to we're living in a system where if you're a certain identity, it's harder for you to build wealth. Nobody is denying that. But that victim mentality of if we're going to keep focusing on that versus how can we hijack the system, use the master's tools, one could argue, to create wealth. And if you then have that extra social justice layer, use that wealth, that resources to make changes. I'm somebody, again, just thinking about my own journey and how I am creating abundance. I'm learning about the rules of the game and using that to create money. And with that money, I will be using it for social justice means. And there are a lot of people, activists especially, who are they don't like money. It's almost like if you want to aspire to have money, you're an evil person. You're just like these, corrupt billionaires. And I really challenge that. It's not money that makes you evil. Money is just a resource. And I actually think more people, especially more Black women, need to actually learn how to make money in this system. Because then we can actually change the system. It'll be a lot easier to change the system. And I see Laura, you do swimming. Going looking at the comments. I have been swimming. I've been in Nottingham this past week. I've been using my dad's gym and I've been swimming every single day, and I love swimming. And when I go back to the Caribbean, like swimming in the ocean, that's my thing. Like that's truly what just makes me calm and like resets me. So I love swimming. And my friend was in a play, not a play, it's like a documentary about how not many Black people learn how to swim. A lot of Black people carry that trauma, that generational trauma, but also there's a branch of science of genetics, I think it's called epigenetics, that highlights how trauma is carried through, I think, 14 lines of families. So there are a lot of people who, if they've come from a line of enslaved people in the Caribbean or other places, we know that in the Middle Passage, enslaved Africans would be thrown into the water and would drown. Your body remembers. There's somewhere in your body that remembers that water used to signal death for you. So sorry to go on that quote unquote dark note, but swimming is very powerful. And I'm a Pisces, so I love swimming. I love being in the water. So we're coming towards, I would say we're like in like 70% of this workshop. We're in like the 70%. So I just want to thank everybody who is still here. I'm hoping everybody is enjoying this. I'm not the same person that I was when I was working as an academic librarian. I've evolved so much, and they say that being an entrepreneur is like it's basically just self-development. Everything you think about yourself will come up. Your rejection wounds, your abandonment issues, like it comes up. And so I didn't know though that I would learn so much about myself or unlearn so much about myself that in many ways it's richer than money. Like I'm I'm I can't even explain it, but one thing I will say is I definitely feel self-actualized. Like uncertainty is scary, but it doesn't need to have that chokehold on my emotions that make me anxious and paranoid. And of course, I can say that with the privilege of currently I don't have mental health issues, and I have had mental health issues in the past where it's been very hard to stop that feeling of just feeling scared when you're met with something uncertain because life, this is literally our first go at life. No one has lived life before. We're all learning every single day. So we can't be certain. Even the quote unquote person who respectfully is in a secure job or thinks they're secure, you don't, people don't know that. Which is also why I made a YouTube video where it's like the economy is so bad, you may as well go after your dreams. It's called something like that. You can watch it after this. Is this idea that a 9 to 5 job isn't even secure anymore. Like nothing is secure. So actually now, ironically, the time where it's the most kind of scariest and riskiest is actually the perfect time to just be like, YOLO, you only live once. Let's do it. Let me actually embark on my dreams. And again, like if that is something that you want to do, that you want to embark on your dreams, but there's something holding you back, just keep watching where towards the end I will explain maybe how my work may help you in that regard and aspect. But we're on the final kind of segment because you remember we broke this down into more notes, more ideas, and more energy. And this is a picture of Grenada. Oh, and even even looking at it, it's giving me, I just feel so much calmer. This whole masterclass, this idea of remembering abundance came when I was in Grenada last month. And it goes back to what I was saying about when you look at the world and you see how much beauty this world just naturally has. Sunsets, and you're looking at like the pinks and the oranges, these colors, and you're thinking there has to be some intelligent force behind it. How is the sky so beautiful? These stars, this moon, like water, the sound of it is so beautiful. Like, how is the earth just so randomly beautiful? I can't even put it into words. There must be some intelligence force, whether you want to call it God or the cosmic intelligence. There is so much beauty and wonder and mystery and abundance, natural abundance that we can tap into. You know, I think coming back to London, I've just really seen how it's a concrete jungle. Like we can't see how naturally beautiful it is because we're living in concrete. We're just seeing gray, we're just seeing buildings, just seeing cars, which is why I would really encourage everybody. If there's one thing you can do, if there's nothing you do today or after this workshop, but there's one thing, then do it. Just start incorporating going to parks more, like being in greenery, being in nature. Like it's just very, very important to stay connected, to just touch some grass, touch leaf, to smell at the minimum. Even if you can, like buying flowers, just having something alive, having actual live energy around you, where it's not just concrete buildings, something naturally abundant. Because again, that also changes the way you feel. It changes the way you move through life. It changes the way you think about things. You can't change a sector, you can't change a system until you change the people inside the system. So, energy. Energy as well is a word that creates a lot of skepticism. My sus is going to come out. Skepticism. There we go. It creates a lot of there's a lot of triggering when we think about energy. Some people start to think, oh, woo-woo, it's not practical, it's too philosophical. But I'm here to remind you kindly and gently that science really talks about everything that I'm also sharing with you today, encouraging people to question truth, knowledge, and power. So, science itself says that what you experience may not exist inside the strange truth of reality. What our senses allow us to experience may not reflect what actually exists. It may be a creation of our own consciousness or a computer simulation designed by super intelligent beings. Now, new scientists, Donna, Allison, Daniel, and Leo, they created this article, and new scientists thought it's okay to publish because, this whole computer simulation designed by super intelligent beings is very similar to the film The Matrix. I'm like everybody's going to have their own view on reality consciousness. Um, I yeah, I think anything is possible. I don't think we should rule out anything. And this is what this article was highlighting. They used the example of bees and how humans, unlike bees, don't normally see ultraviolet light. We can't sense Earth's magnetic field, unlike turtles, worms, and wolves. We're deaf to high and low pitch noises that other animals can hear and have a relatively weak sense of smell. Everybody knows that we don't see all of reality. I say we see none of it. So I have a dog, and there's definitely been times in my house where he started to look up and he started to like smile. He's a very expressive dog. And I'm always like, what are you looking at? But then there was actually this this incident where my dog started to like look up and he started to growl in like a horror film. But I'm quite a supernatural person. I'm not scared by things like this. I just said Bismillah, which is like an Arabic saying, like inviting like God and goodness back in and open the window. But I definitely believe that there are things behind me, by my side, around me, ancestors that I just can't see. The eye just can't see. Animals though they can see because of how the ultraviolet goes into their eyes. Also, let's consider how our brain functions, the human brain. So they continue saying, on top of this, our brain presents us with only a snapshot. If our senses took in every detail, we would be overwhelmed. Did you notice the last time you blinked? Or that fleshy protuberance called your nose that is always in your peripheral vision? No, because your brain edits them out. A lot of what our senses are doing is something like data compression, simplifying in order to be able to function. Most of what you see is an illusion. Our eyes aren't all seeing. but capture fleeting glimpses of the outside world between rapid movements called saccades. Kind of goes into my argument when people say, oh, what you're saying is delusional. Well, scientists have basically confirmed that I'm very justified and evidence does confirm my belief that you can believe in the unseen because we're not seeing everything. We literally can't see everything. And also, ironically, that a lot of what we are seeing is an illusion or a delusion. So, when people kind of talk down or dismiss or belittle spirituality and manifestation, I always recognize and understand that actually you just haven't done enough research about it. We do have this ability to create more abundance, whether in our personal lives or in the wider world. And how do you do that? Well, first we have to remember certain things like the fact that our eyes see an illusion, that not everything that is coming through the eye is perceived by the brain, not all the light that is coming through the pupil and the lens is complete. Now, something as well, okay, I'm really showing my personality here. Like, everybody thinks I'm a very, very serious person, and I am, but I love trashy reality TV and Temptation Island. I don't know if anybody else watches Temptation Island. It probably could just be me because it is a very trashy show, but it's a show on Netflix where four couples, they're in difficult relationships. So they come to this island, Temptation Island, and they separate. And the women, they go in one house, the men go in another. They have this night called bonfire night where the women will come and see what the men have got up to, and the men will come and see what the women have got up to in this house. Because in this house, they've got different sexes. So in the women's house, they've got all these conventionally attractive men, like a lot of men who are trying to tempt them. They have to go on dates. Like it's showing about, can you be tempted? Can you forget about your relationship or can you stay loyal? In the men's house, they have all these conventionally attractive women. And so they come to the bonfire with the presenter of the show, Mark, and they look in the screen to see what, their partners have been doing. And why I like this show and why I've included it in this masterclass is because Mark, the presenter who also acts as like a life coach, he shows them the footage of, their boyfriend basically kissing somebody else, or, there's been some wild things that have happened in the house on certain episodes. He shows it to them, he pauses, and then he always says, so what did you see? Never how do you feel? He always says, so what did you see? Or if he shows a testimonial, like, their partner in the camera room just talking about something that's going on, he'll say, so what did you hear? Again, never how do you feel? And he does that because, again, goes back to we are viewing life through a lens of perception. Sometimes that's negative, most of the time negative, actually, sometimes positive. So people are looking at this footage, but they're not seeing the objective reality. They're reading it through their insecurities. Lots of the time, they're reading it through their ego. So lots of the time, there'll be a lot of blame on the other person versus what have I done to make my partner act out in that way? Or the fact that a lot of time they're doing worse than their partner, but they just don't want to see their partner doing it. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? I've explained some of the science, and it'd be interesting after this masterclass to reflect on things in your life. How are you viewing them? How are you hearing about pieces of information? What's going on in the world or what's going on in your life? How are you interpreting it? We're always interpreting information through what we've been through. When I was doing my master's in library and information studies, I learned about a field called critical information studies, which is highlighting how information is not neutral. Who produces information? It's always coming from a biased perspective. Most of the time there is an agenda, but also how that person receives that information is very subjective. During lockdown, there there were people who were scared of being vaccinated, and the mainstream media would say, oh, they believe in conspiracy theories. That's why they don't want to be vaccinated. But I did in my assignment where I was showing, for example, African Americans in America, a lot of people were scared of being vaccinated because of medical experiments done on Black people and their distrust of the medical system. Again, I'm highlighting this just to encourage you to think about quote unquote conspiracy theories, and maybe there has been an attitude towards those who believe in quote unquote conspiracy theories. But remember that there's a reason why they believe in them. And, not everybody believes in conspiracy theories because they're quote unquote dumb or they're ill-educated. That's actually quite, I would argue, an elitist perspective and a judgmental perspective. There's people who believe in certain things because of their lived experience, and their reality has shown them that, okay, there's something inside me that is making me want to consider this. And it goes back to what we've been saying about challenge yourself to new information, be open, like don't be closed-minded. Thinking that you're so smart and you can never have your perspective change, that is actually, it's very narrow thinking, and it's scarcity thinking. Even if you don't want to take on and change your beliefs and opinions, you can at least learn about other people's opinions, which will provide just a richer source for you to think about things from. So, encouraging you to tap into new energy. Are people still with me? If you can let me know in the comments if people are still with me, that would be great. We're very close to the end though. And you let me know if anything is coming up. Anything, questions or statements or reflections, even if they don't make sense, everything is valid. So as I mentioned, I have an ebook that is free to download from my website that I would say kind of helps to explain my positionality, but also can help to explain why, let's say you do have a dream, you do have a desire, but you feel blocked, you feel stuck. It's not always down to, oh, you just need to think a bit more positively. For me, I've learned that by understanding the game we're in, the system we're in, it helps me to have a better understanding of me, which can then help me to have a better understanding of why do I behave like that? Why do I think like that? And with that awareness, it's easier to create new lifestyle changes. So in my book, I talk about how the school system is literally designed to breed conformity. We learn from a very long time ago when the earliest humans learned that you have to be in a pack. If you leave the pack, that will result in death. So we carry that remembering, we carry that survival, that remembering how to survive. But then unfortunately, we have all these extra layers of conditioning, such as the school system. Talk more about this in my book. I give highlights, for example, the design of the school designs conformity, how when to pass an exam, it's not about being a critical thinker. You just have to say the right things. But what are the right things? The things that are in the back of a book. You're just taught to regurgitate the same thing. So all these things that we've picked up in our socialization, in our society, we know that when you step out and you're that quote unquote black sheep, it's not always easy. It's definitely not fun. It's not fun to be seen as different. A lot of the time, you do invite being misunderstood, you do invite being rejected, being abandoned, scrutinized, mocked. That's something that I experienced in secondary school. I was really bullied because I've always been very different in my outlook and in my expression. And I was bullied from year 7 up to year 8 because I wasn't really the same as other people. And that left within me a fear of being seen as different, which made me dim my light. And I say this is when I was working my 9 to 5, like I was scared to shine because I was scared to invite jealousy. because I've had people around me be very jealous. I was scared to invite that because it's not a nice feeling. So I had to quickly unlearn that when I quit my job because if you're scared about what other people are going to think about you, you'll never put yourself out there. You'll never find the people who are meant to find you. And, you know, it also as well, like I've got to a place where it's not to say necessarily that it hurts less to be rejected or misunderstood for my views or my content or like my business, but something does happen. The relationship that I have with, my rejection and fear, it changes. And the more you put yourself out there, the more data you collect to show that actually I don't die, I do survive. So it's really reprogramming yourself to be more comfortable in uncertainty. That's really kind of again like a little, you can say, business tip. It's like it's not people who have this quote unquote confident mindset. I would say they're not necessarily born with it. Some people maybe are born with it, like the white rich guys, the Nepo babies, maybe like those born in privilege, um, and those who went to private school who were taught from very young to be confident, even though yeah, like sometimes though, you can be taught something, but you don't have to naturally take it on because my dad actually paid for me to go to private school, but it didn't make me more confident. Actually, I was one of the few black people in my school, so it made me very like I felt very inferior. I was also like one of the poorest in my schools, and I had friends who were very rich, and when I went to their houses, like I felt so inferior. I felt so dirty. I felt so poor, which again, this is something I've had to reflect on or relearn in my journey post 9 to 5 because, thinking I'm lesser than people is it's not going to do your dream any favors, whether that's putting yourself out there on social media or setting up something or just being your authentic self, being thinking that you're lesser than, being scared what people are going to think, so you just hide yourself in a box is very problematic. And I feel very cool to share that, that's actually a big problem with the world. I think that's actually why we're in the world is in the state it's in, because we have these people who are so repressed that when you're oppressed, think about it. Like when you're not living how you know you're meant to live, it creates resistance. That resistance can come out as anger, frustration because a big part of you knows that you're not living how you're meant to live, and you're frustrated at yourself because you have the key to the door. That's why I called my book 1, 2, 3, Open This Door. Remember, no one is going to save you. No one's going to say, oh, that business is great. Really put yourself out there. Really, like, go do it. You have to be your cheerleader, especially in the beginning. The external validation, I'm not even going to say comes at a later point because the one thing about external validation, it comes and goes, just like money. People can be your friend 1 minute and turn on you the next day. And I'm not saying that to be pessimistic. I'm just saying that humans, we're very fickle. Think about cancel culture. We're very fickle. The only person who we can have control over is ourselves. So that's why it's this this success mindset, thinking my success is inevitable. I'm going to be my own cheerleader. That's the only opinion that matters because that's the only opinion that's really real that you can have control over and that will never leave you. You will never leave you. So I would encourage everybody, if you haven't read my book already, to download it. Like I said, it's free. It's on my website. Bye-bye, Laura. I just look down just because I'm gonna put the website down. And wow, didn't know it's we are very close to the end. I just want to say thank you so much for staying on. I'm just writing down my website in the chat. Okay, we're definitely, I think 50, we're definitely gonna wrap it up by 10. Definitely, because I'm also getting hungry. My stomach's rumbling, and I've been scared thinking, oh, I hope people don't hear my stomach through the camera. But yeah, we've gone through challenge yourself to new ideas. Just want to emphasize when we start thinking about life differently, new words can create new worlds. And there's See the School on Substack on Instagram. I love this page, and they put this up, I think about 2, 3 years ago. But we remember decolonial futures require interdisciplinary practice. We prioritize unlearning colonial conceptions of human being while learning from indigenous ways of being as we imagine and rehearse new worlds. Remember, we're human beings. Let's redefine what a human being is, the truth, the knowledge, the power of a human being. Let's unlearn these stale, limited beliefs of our potential, of possibility in the world. And let's imagine and rehearse new worlds. First, it has to be our world. Like I said, we can't change the wider world if we're the same. Let's take control and agency of our world. Just highlighting how I've brought up Western science, but how Eastern, indigenous science, pre-colonial science highlights that the physical and spiritual are inseparable, the holistic, communal, and contextual. A lot of what I've been talking about can fall into those categories, which is, some people would dismiss as quote unquote woo-woo. But just remember that this all goes back to defining what is real knowledge, what is accurate knowledge, and knowing that there's an agenda behind that. That information is not neutral. Who produces that information? It has a consequence on how real and truthful that information is. That's why, as well, this is a quote I use all the time, like a little journal prompt, but we've covered how the human eye can't see anything, and the actual statistic can only see 0.0035% of reality. I don't know if you know that, but what we're seeing is literally the tip of the iceberg for real. So think about your own life and the life of others. What dreams, growth, or transformations might be unfolding beneath the surface, even if you can't see them yet? How can you practice more trust in the unseen process of the journey? And this reminds me of something that I did last year. I did a talk at Texas A&M University called Design the Unseen. And for me, I'm using this as a reference and during the times when I don't feel hopeful, because I did this last year during a time when Trump was the president, obviously, and when things related to DEI and indigenous frameworks, that whole kind of like knowledge was obviously being villainized. But I still last year managed to do 2 talks in America. And I say this just to highlight how there were so many people saying, oh, like, you can't do that in America. You can't do that. You can't do that. And it's very similar to you can't do, pursue your dream right now because of the economy. You can be glitches in the matrix. You can be. But you can only be a glitch if you believe you can be. That's all I'm going to say on that. Allow the intensity to produce liberation. Everything we've covered, I know it's not light. This world that we're in, these times that we're in, it's not light, it's very heavy. But allow the intensity to produce a liberation. Sit with things, sit with your triggers. Anything that I've said, sit with it and see what it does. And also, this world, yeah, like it's bubbling, definitely. How can we shape that bubbling? How can we allow that intensity to produce liberation? And we can maybe think, well, afterwards, think about some things that you could maybe do with a new mindset that could make a difference to this world. Just a reminder, my name is Naomi. I'm an ex-academic librarian who designed hope in the form of Die for Art, which is my consultancy. It was originally designed to make the creative industry more politically conscious and aware. But that's when I realized you can't change a sector, you can't change a system until you change the people inside the system, which is why my work now is about helping people change themselves, especially women, helping women break out from the box, realizing that you can't pour into the world if you feel empty within. That there are a lot of people who feel empty, drained, tired, frustrated because of the life that they're currently in, whether that's they're not listening to themselves. They wanna pursue being an entrepreneur, they want to do something, but they're not letting themselves do it. I'm somebody who helps women find that freedom, find that voice. Truly, it's not about listening to me, it's about listening to yourself. And I'm simply a guide to help women connect back with themselves. The teacher is always you. The teacher is never outsourced or has to be outsourced to an external thing, which is why I'm personally, like I said, I don't have role models. There are definitely people who can guide me and inspire me, but I don't put people up. You need to put yourself up. And if you have forgotten, then I would love to encourage you to take a free 4-week trial of my membership, the So Boom Success Club. It's a WhatsApp group that is just full of just rich, energizing positivity. We have group sessions once a month. We have at the end of the month, Alicia showing us the dream she's working on and just using the rest of the group as a base to get some quote unquote market feedback in a non-pressured way. It's a safe space and container. So I'd love to invite those who are still here and also those who watch the replay. There's no time constraint. All you have to do is send me an email or go to my website, www.die4art, DIE number 4 art by Naomi, Naomi.com, and take it from there. I'd also as well would love to offer a free 30-minute wellness call, which can be booked on my website as well. This is when we just go over what is bothering you, and using my abilities, clairsentience, claircognisance, I'm just very gifted at hearing, oh, you said something there. I sense resistance, or you contradicted yourself. And again, it's just awakening yourself up to how are you looking at life? How are you moving through life? This is somebody who I've worked with, a little testimonial of like what it was like to work with me. Working with me is something that is not for everybody, I'll be honest. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's for those who truly feel something, when like have felt something listening to me, have felt things or will feel things in the future, these sensations. And yeah, if you feel called to, I would love to invite you. That's all I'm going to say with that. So we have ended a little bit. What time is it? 10 to 10. So I said we were going to end by 10. So I've been 10 minutes early. So we have reached the end of this masterclass. So I really hope that you felt something. Remember at the beginning, I said, I hope that you leave feeling different than when you entered. So I don't know how everybody's feeling. I can definitely stop sharing and stop recording if anybody feels called to talk on mic but doesn't want it to be recorded. So let me actually do that now. I'm just going onto Zoom. Trying to, I really hope I was recording. Imagine if I wasn't. If I wasn't, it'd be fine. I would just redo this again. Let me just stop sharing. Oh, it has been recording, thank God. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.